What is up, YouTube? This is Nanashi here with something a little different. I was planning on waiting a little longer to announce this, possibly once I hit 1,000 subscribers, but given the extremely tiny influence these most recent Yu-Gi-Oh! Sets, special boxes, and ban lists have had on all of my decks, I thought this would be a good time to make the announcement of some new and different content. I've decided to add another card game to the channel alongside Yu-Gi-Oh! And the new game I plan to add is the Bushiroad card game, Weiss Schwarz. I actually left a little Easter egg in my last Yu-Gi-Oh! Ban list video about it, but only a couple of people happened to notice, so... Now let's get this out of the way. 1, there is 0 chance of this new game taking over my channel. I have dedicated 20 years of my time to Yu-Gi-Oh! And I have no interest in stopping now, regardless of any issues I have with the game's competitive side or the time rules. The new game is something I've only recently been into for a few months, so as I learn to play it, I intend to share it. That's all there is to it. 2, there is a surprisingly small number of channels covering this game, so I thought it'd be a fun venture to try and bring more attention to it. In fact, the channels that do cover it only have at most a couple thousand subscribers, and the majority of them are pack opening channels. Doesn't sound that different from Yu-Gi-Oh! Until you notice that there are many times more channels of Yu-Gi-Oh! And that the subscriber counts on the average one are astoundingly higher. 3, the game's base mechanics and overall aesthetic is almost polar opposite to what Yu-Gi-Oh! Is. And in the back of my mind, I thought the two contrasting styles of game would create a nice counterbalance between fast and active Yu-Gi-Oh! And slow and methodical Weiss Schwarz, like a yin and yang. Now, on the subject of the game itself, some of you may know the name Bushiroad from Cardfight Vanguard, or possibly future Card Buddy Fight, and I'd be lying if Weiss Schwarz didn't have elements of both of them in it. But why Weiss Schwarz of all things? Well, firstly, the mechanics are far more geared to extended play. The way it is designed, there are no single turn kills or shutdowns, which are major issues that I have in Yu-Gi-Oh! Some decks cannot put damage faster than others, and some can slow your plays a little, but the game actually has mechanical means of giving you the best opportunities to play and prevents you from losing too soon, as long as your deck is built at least somewhat decently. And speaking of deck building, another bonus is you can buy a single trial deck and actually be able to play it at a decent level right out of the box. This is a major difference from many other card games where you would have to buy multiple starter decks and piece together something playable from them and cards you picked up elsewhere. Kind of annoying. And on the subject of money, another thing that is borderline non-existent in this game is the pay-to-win dynamic. I have seen decks worth almost $1,000 that have the best cards in their respective archetype lose to a $20 trial deck that had minor alterations. And not through some bizarre gimmick or scummy win condition, but through legitimate interactive play. I've experienced this myself too. It's a common occurrence. Plus, there are no endless reprints, another bonus when it comes to the value. Outside of the initial prints of trial decks and booster packs, anything that is printed once, which means any money you put in the game will stay reasonably at the same amount. Decreasing value because of reprints does not happen. And there is no need to be concerned about old mechanics or power creep to support. Barring the oldest decks that were first created years ago, however poorly, almost all cards, decks, and archetypes are still valid and viable. As such, new support for old decks is not really a thing, unless the shows the decks are based on have spin-offs or movies, and even then they don't necessarily work with the same archetype. Speaking of which, this brings up my favorite point, the one thing that finally pulled me into this game. Weiss Schwarz is a game that makes decks and themes out of pre-existing anime and video games. In the few months that I have played this game, I've already found half a dozen decks I want to build and am already in the process of building as we speak. I've made 2 decks out of one of my favorite anime ever, Gurren Lagann, and I'm planning on making a 3rd. I have 1 deck based on Excel World that I'm still fiddling with, and it's primarily Kuroyuki Hime. I just discovered the Hatsune Miku archetype, and I'll probably be sticking to Hatsune Miku in that only. I have a sort of interest in Batman Ninja, mostly because of the art, but because the villain cards look really interesting. I'm considering buying Psycho Pass and Sengoku Basara once they come to America, because both of those are shows I just happen to like. And I'm also possibly considering getting Kemono Friends and JoJo Part 5 because JoJo. What more needs to be said? Now, my wife Alice already has a nearly completed Kill la Kill deck and the Persona 5 trial deck, and at my local shop I have friends with Gun Gale Online, Fairy Tail, Fate Apocrypha, and Log Horizon. And at least one of them is interested in picking up Goblin Slayer when it drops at the start of 2020. Now, one downside this game has is that there is no currently fully functional emulator available, so the only way to play and record games would be in person, but I'm going to record whatever I can get and edit them to the best of my abilities, as well as the deck profiles. And add to it that I'm also making a video series explaining how to play the game called On Stage, and I'll be leaving a link to the private playlist in the notes. Now, if any of this interests you, I'm hoping you'll be willing to take a look at what I produce, but if not, I understand. Weiss Schwarz and Bushiroll as a whole is not for everyone, but for those of you that do take a look, I will see you there. In the meantime, this has been Nanashi, signing out.